Hi everyone, welcome to Maximum Attack Rallying and to a list video. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but as the channel grows, for which I am very, very grateful, I've been thinking about the kind of content that I would like to do. And as well as covering all of the latest news and stories and opinion things related to WRC and all of that stuff, I'd also like to do some videos that are a little bit less time sensitive, so if someone watches it on the day that it's released, they can enjoy it, or if they stumble upon it a year or two down the line, it might also be fun. So as someone that's worked on rally cars, built rally cars, and been fortunate enough as an engineer to work on some very interesting projects, including Formula One bits and pieces and World Endurance bits and pieces and stuff in the past, I thought I might have some useful experience to share with people that are thinking of building a rally car, or thinking of buying a rally car, or are maybe just interested in what goes into building or buying a rally car. So that is what today's video is all about. If you're only interested in the news stuff, please watch this anyway, so the algorithm doesn't punish me. But fear not, those news and opinion videos aren't going anywhere. I'm going to keep doing them. I might maybe try and split the schedule a little bit, so Monday is more focused on that stuff, and then the Thursday video is a little bit more of an evergreen type video, as we would call it in the business. But obviously, if there's something time sensitive or a big story, we will cover it because I don't want to move away from that stuff, because it's interesting and I like rabbiting on about it and sharing my opinions and engaging with all of you guys and hearing what you have to say about it. So if there is anything you'd like me to cover from that side or from the techie side, do let me know in the comments, because like I said, I'm thinking about things that we can do on the channel as it grows, so I would love to hear what you would like to watch. Anyway, on with the show. If you've watched this channel for any length of time, you will know that I'm a big fan of the affordable end of the sport and finding cars and ways that people can get into rallying without having to remortgage their house. You will also know that I'm a fan of trying to find ways to incorporate more modern cars into entry-level rallying. You know, let's face it, while cars like the Peugeot 205, Opel Corsa, Vauxhall Nova, Mark II Escort, they're all fantastic. They have lots and lots of support. They've been very successful, and they can all make a really good platform for a rally car. But there are also lots of newer cars out there that are very, very capable and getting much cheaper. So if you can spend less money on a base car, rather than spending £5,000 on a Mark II Escort body shell, or £5,000 for that matter on a Peugeot 205 GTI, if you can spend half of that on a more modern car, that will potentially not only have you with something that's faster and handles better, but it will leave you more money to spend on go faster bits. And that is kind of part of the fun, isn't it? So to that end, and getting to the point of this video, which I'm sure you've all been waiting for, I'm going to tell you my 5 best choices for entry-level rally cars in 2026, especially for people that don't want to buy the same old thing that most other people buy. Yes, if you are looking to win rallies, you might have to spend a bit more money, but I believe that the cars I've chosen offer a good balance of performance versus cost versus being able to get parts for them. And I think with the right modifications, some of these cars could actually get you pretty close to some good class results and give you some good opportunities for the odd trophy here and there, even if they're not on the same level as, you know, a fancy car with a sequential gearbox and all that stuff. It is worth saying that this list is quite UK and Europe centric, so if you are watching this from North America, firstly, hello. Secondly, some of the cars on this list might not actually be available to you or not be so easy to get hold of. Maybe I will try and do a North America or other parts of the world focused list video in the future, but that is a video for another time. We need to get on with it. So number 1 then, the Suzuki Swift Sport. This might not surprise some of you. The Swift does have a bit of a following already. The one I'm talking about is the ZC31S model. The earlier car came out in 2005. It has a 1.6 litre 4-cylinder 16-valve engine, produces about 125 horsepower, and has a 5-speed gearbox, not the later 6-speed version. These are the ones to go for, in my view, because they're a bit cheaper. I think you can buy them for less than £2,000 in the UK still, though obviously that might not be the very best example, but I would have thought for 3,000 you'd get a pretty darn good example. I think I would go out and say that they are maybe one of the best value entry-level rally cars available right now. So, as I said, they have their fans. They have been well used. You do see a few of them out there competing. There was, of course, a Mazda Super 1600 version, but we're not talking about that here. There was also a one-make championship for them back in the late 2000s. That means that there is plenty of expertise out there with how to make a Swift a good rally car. The Swift was also, of course, sold all around the world. That means that there's lots and lots of aftermarket bits out there for them. So you've got your choice of suspension upgrades and brake upgrades and various other bits and pieces. If you're looking to do this very much at the entry level and you're just planning on doing circuit type rallies in the UK, for example, there's even a one-make racing championship run by the 750 Motor Club, so you could probably build a car using a lot of the parts from that championship, and it would be reasonably suitable for smoother circuit type events. Obviously, if you want to go further, the sky is very much the limit. For the engine, for example, you can add throttle bodies, exhaust manifolds, camshafts, and all sorts of other things. I've seen the 1.6 litre engine in those cars producing 180 odd horsepower, I think, with just bolt-on bits without changing pistons and connecting rods. Obviously, if you added bits like that, you should be able to get north of 200, but then we're talking about sort of Super 1600 type engines, aren't we? Which is not really part of the budget rallying idea, but it does give you an idea of the level of performance available. One area where the Swift comes into its own is with the gearbox. The problem when you're rallying a basic road car is that the gear ratios are usually far too long. For most events, you're probably not really going to need to do more than 100, 110 miles an hour, whereas your average road car gearbox is going to give you a theoretical top speed probably of north of 150, even in a Swift that doesn't have the power to get there. A bonus with the Swift, particularly the 5-speed version, is that there is a relatively cost-effective solution to that. So most of us don't have £10,000 to spend on a sequential gearbox, but if you go on the M Factory website, you will find that they offer a 5-speed close ratio synchro gear kit for the Swift Sport. That will give you decent gear ratios, which should make the car much more competitive. That kit is around £1,700. So while it's still not super cheap, it is much cheaper than a sequential or a dog gearbox. And if you fitted that in conjunction with your throttle bodies, cams, had your 180 horsepower setup that I talked about earlier, I would say that you would have a pretty quick little car, and one that could cause some class upsets if you were pretty handy behind the wheel. So I think that makes it quite compelling. As I said, there's loads of suspension and braking upgrades out there for the Swift. You've got rally specialists like Harry Hockley Motorsport based in Wales. They can do some rally specific upgrades, some Super 1600 parts if you're feeling flush. So there is lots and lots of choice for the Swift in terms of parts and upgrades, and you can build a relatively quick car for relatively good value, or you can just stick with something nearly standard and just enjoy some budget rallying. So for me, that makes it one of the most cost-effective choices right now. Moving on to a car that I have mentioned numerous times before, and I will keep on banging the drum until people listen, and that is the Mark 7 Ford Fiesta, which was released back in 2008. I'm not going to talk about this one in too much detail. I've already done a video about it, so I will link that in the description. But for me, this is one of the most slept on affordable entry-level cars out there, and it surprises me that you don't see more of them. I said that this list is not very relative to America, but if you look in North America, it seems that people are quite switched on to the Fiesta, and you see quite a few of them competing. But in Europe, you really don't, outside of the, FIA M Sport official R2 Rally 4 type cars. So why am I such a big fan of the Mark 7 Fiesta? For me, it's just got a bit of everything. It ticks lots and lots of boxes. They were the best-selling car in the UK pretty much from when they were launched until they went out of production. That means that they're everywhere, parts are easy to get, and you will have lots of choice when buying. There are also loads and loads of engine choices. If we ignore the tiny little stuff and just focus on the motorsporty ones, you could have a 1.4 or a 1.6. Those engines were based on the same Sigma architecture that was found in the 1.4 or 1.6 Ford Puma. So there are upgrades there. There was also the 1 litre 3-cylinder turbo, which was used in the R2T. So that would put you in the 2 litre category in the UK, sometimes in the 1.6 category, depending on the event. Lots of tuning potential in that engine as well. Of course, There was also a 1.6 litre turbo in the ST. That's the basis for the engine in the current R5/Rally 2 Fiesta, and it's also massively tunable and almost unburstable. So it just means that you can build a Fiesta to compete in pretty much any class that you like. On top of that, the chassis is brilliant. Obviously, the car got loads and loads of praise for its handling when it was new, and there are, again, loads and loads of aftermarket bits for them in suspension terms, loads of coilover kits, etc, etc. And they're also pretty cheap. You know, you can buy base models for less than £1,000 now if you're in the UK. Even the ST, that is available from as little as £3,000 now, so they're getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. As I said, go and watch the full video. The link is in the description, and that will give you more info on why I like the Fiesta so much. At number 3, then, we are cheating a little bit because it's actually 2 cars, but I'm putting them together because I don't care. So it is the BMW Mini Cooper and Cooper S. So why have I squashed 2 different trims of car into one category? And that is because of the BMW Mini Rally Challenge. I love a one-make rally championship, and I would say that the Mini Challenge is one of the best in the UK right now. Arguably the best, in fact. So there are 2 categories in this championship. You've got the category for the Mini Cooper R50, which uses a 1.6 litre normally aspirated engine, which is about 115 horsepower. And then you've got one for the supercharged Cooper S version, which leaves the factory with about 160 horsepower. What I love about this, as with all good one-make championships, is that the regulations are super, super strict, and that limits cost and helps to ensure a level playing field. So outside of the usual safety bits and pieces, there are a very strict set of modifications that you're allowed to make. It's all on the Mini Challenge website. Go and look it up. I will put the link in the description to that as well. But the suspension is supplied by BC Racing. You can have a limited slip differential from Quaife or Blackline, depending on who makes the gearbox in your particular car. Brake pads are from Mintex, etc, etc. Engines are kept pretty standard. The supercharged cars can run a 17% smaller pulley, which gives over 200 horsepower, which means they should be pretty fun to drive. As I said, there are a number of advantages to competing in a one-make championship. Crucially, it's that part about the cars being even, which means talent dictates the winner rather than budget. And, you know, secondly, because you're part of this single championship, you've got that sense of community, haven't you? You should get to know some of the other competitors and the officials, and that just makes it more fun. Obviously, if people get in trouble, there should be people there to help you out who know the cars and might have parts if you need them. So it just makes it more of a community. Another thing I like about it in the championship is there's a mix of tarmac and gravel. There's events that are single venue rallies. Some are using multi-venue gravel. That means that if you're at a lower budget, you can do the single venues, or you can move up to the forest events. And crucially, the way the championship structure works, you can still win without doing all of the events, so it gives more opportunities. And again, it doesn't mean that just the people who spend the most money should win. Crucially as well, speaking of money, cost is pretty low. The conversions for the car shouldn't cost too much, and it's still possible to buy even the supercharged R53 Minis for less than £1,000, though you might have to spend a bit more than that to get a really nice example. So I think overall, certainly if you're in the UK, the Mini Challenge represents the best value championship, and is probably the best single make championship in the UK. So that is reason enough for it to be on this list. Another thing that should be on your list, however, is a visit to the Maximum Attack Rallying merch store. Do go and check it out. There are t-shirts, hats, mugs, stickers, many other things, some with Maximum Attack branding, some with other little funny rally related slogans and bits and pieces. Do go and have a look and do a buy. It would be very, very helpful indeed to me if you did that, because it helps to keep the channel ticking along. So go and check it out. There is a link in the description, but let us get back on to the list. So for numbers 4 and 5, it is time to get into the choices for you sideways kids. I thought long and hard about rear-wheel drive cars for this list. In reality, the vast majority of people who are starting out are probably going to end up in something front-wheel drive. There's a lot more choice, especially at the lower end of the budget, but some people just prefer rear-wheel drive, so let's put some on the list. There are not many choices, and I doubt you will be surprised by either of them, but let's get into number 4, which is the Mazda MX5/Yunus Roadster /Miata, depending on where you're from, particularly the NC generation. Some of you will say, oh yeah, but the NA and NB are better, and I get that. They're lighter, smaller, all that stuff. But rust is a real problem on those older cars, and while the NC isn't immune, it is a bit newer. There's a lot of them around, and I think for me, it's slightly better value. It's not quite as popular with the wider JDM tuning community, and I think there's just a slightly better chance of the underside not looking like an open bag of bran flakes. Also, I'm 6'3" and I just don't fit very well in the older cars, so there's that as well. So which one do you buy? Well, I would skip the 1.8 litre version and jump straight to the 2 litre. That engine is basically a version of the Ford Duratec engine used in the Mark 6 Ford Fiesta ST. It was also used in Caterhams. That means there are loads of tuning parts out there for them. If you bought the 1.8, it's not a bad car, but you'd still end up in the 2 litre class in the UK, so you're just putting yourself at an instant disadvantage. So I would definitely seek out a 2 litre. I found a 2006 2 litre car on Auto Trader in the UK for £1,300 while I was researching this video, so they are very cheap and cheerful still, and as any road tester will tell you, they handle wonderfully and are all the sports car you would ever need. They were also sold globally, so they have a massive aftermarket following. There are loads and loads of bits out there for the suspension and brakes and all of that stuff. As I said, the engine was used in Caterhams and other things, so there's lots and lots of tuning potential. If you're feeling flush, BBR in the UK offer a range of off-the-shelf tuning packages for the 2 litre MX5, all the way up to 225 horsepower with throttle bodies. You can go much further than that if you want to. I've seen 300 horsepower 2 litre Duratec engines, so there is loads and loads of options in that respect. I haven't found, that said, lots of options when it comes to the transmission, not in the same way, for example, as the Swift that we talked about earlier. That said, it does look like M Factory offer a couple of shorter rear diff ratios, which would help you a little bit and give you a little bit more acceleration and a little bit less top speed, so that's a good thing. Obviously, the MX5 is used widely in circuit racing, so another good choice for circuit rallies. Maybe not the best choice if you're planning to venture into the forests, but regardless, it's a really good package, isn't it, for the money? Cheap to buy, lots of modifying potential, and it should be a lot of fun. And when you're competing at the bottom of the sport, that's what it's all about, isn't it? So I would say that if you insist on rear drive, the MX5 is probably the best starting point. Or is it? Because not everyone will want a dainty little sports car. Some of you will want something with a bit more muscle. So if you are looking for that, maybe I can tempt you with number 5. And for that, we travel from Japan to Germany and to the BMW 3 Series, maybe. Because I laboured a lot over which BMW to actually choose. I think everyone's going to have their preference for this. But the thing is, values make it quite difficult to choose the best one. In the end, I decided to be a little bit of a wimp and sit on the fence. So I did rule out the E30 and the E36. Both are getting quite collectible and quite expensive, so they don't seem the best choice if you are looking to do things on a budget. So I ended up settling on the E46 because I think it is just about the best balance of cost versus performance. It is getting close though. If you look at the price of the later E90s, which came out in 2004 or 5, didn't they? 330i's and stuff from that generation are actually getting cheaper than some of the big engine E46s. The problem for me is that they seemed a bit big and heavy compared to an E46, so I eventually went with the slightly older car. But I would say that a strong caveat to that is that if you can find a 130i for the right price, then that would make a good alternative. That said, the beauty of BMWs, whichever one you choose, is that much like the Fiesta, actually, that I mentioned earlier, there are loads and loads of parts out there, and like older Fords, there's lots and lots of interchangeability where you can take one parts from one car and add them to another car to gain performance without spending too much money. For example, then, if you started with an E46, maybe you'd want to go down a slightly more lightweight route, so you could start with one of the TI compact versions, maybe try and find the reviest 2-litre BMW engine, put that in there and have something reasonably light and peppy. maybe you want to go the other way and fit the engine from a 330 Ci and ride that 6-pot wave of torque. The final choice, of course, will be down to you, but I think the secret to building a good budget BMW rally car is taking advantage of the best combination of factory parts that you can to give you the most bang for your buck. So, you know, suspension and braking components can be borrowed from M3s. BMW Motorsport have made a range of limited slip differential and final drive options, so maybe you could add one of those. So I think it's very much a case of raiding the corporate parts bin and piecing together the best combination of bits to give you the best car for your money. I think if it was me, I would go down one of two routes. So if the E46 is your preference, I would try to seek out a 325 Ti compact, fit a short or final drive, and just enjoy some cheap-ish thrills. If you wanted more power, as I said earlier, you could always fit the 330 3-litre engine, which would put you over 200 horsepower. If you're looking for something newer, though, as I said, maybe you could find a 130i, which is a bit newer. It's a little bit on the heavy side. I think they're around 1,400 kilos, but that 3-litre straight six in those later cars is just over 260 horsepower, so should provide decent thrills. And there, as I said, you know, it's then time to raid the parts bin. M Performance brake calipers, for example, fit onto the 130i, which could give you 4-pot front brakes, and then any M3 suspension bits and pieces that you could throw at it would give you a decent car in either case. Ultimately, I think you just pay your money and take your choice, don't you? I think it's worth mentioning at this point that if you do decide to go down the 6-cylinder BMW route, you might struggle to be competitive. The problem with those cars is that you're immediately going to be in the over 2-litre class, where you're going to be up against lightweight Mark II Escorts with Millington engines or tuned up Vauxhall engines, sequential gearboxes, less than 1,000 kilos. You are not going to match those cars in a heavy 6-pot BMW. So it depends what you want, doesn't it? If you're just going out to have fun, by all means, you know, knock yourself out, buy a cheap BMW and just go and skid about and enjoy it. But if you're looking to be a bit more competitive, then I would suggest maybe some of the other cars on this list are a slightly better way to go. So if you're looking to beat the class system, this is probably not the one for you. But if you want to go sideways, go for it. Anyway, there we have it. 5 entry-level rally cars that are not a Mark II Escort, Peugeot 205 or Vauxhall Nova. Are you tempted by any of them, or do you think I've got it completely wrong? Let me know in the comments which of the 5 you would choose, or what would be the car you would like to build if you were starting your rallying journey, or if you've already started your rallying journey, let me know the car that you've started with and how you're getting on. I'd love to hear about that. I'd like to see what people are up to. While you're there, maybe you could give those like and subscribe buttons a little tickle as well. Very much helps. As I said at the top of this video, the WRC news and chit chat is not going anywhere, so stay tuned for the latest on that. Otherwise, all that remains for me to say is thank you for watching, and I will see you again in the next video.